Here we go. I've done this video before, but it's good enough to where I'm going to do it again. And I think it touches on some subjects I wanted to touch on with the neurotypicals kind of suck video. Not all of them, but I think I can address part of it. There's also a sequel. I believe it's this one. So if you want to see how he's addressed the issues brought up in here, watch this. I'm going to probably reference it a bit myself. Just watch his videos in general. He makes some good videos.
So this is probably something that not everyone's going to be able to understand because it doesn't look like that from the outside. But rejection is the story of my life. If I had to give an analogy of what it's like to be around other people, it's almost as though they're this massive school of fish and they're all around me and I move through them and they just get out of my way and don't interact with me at all. That's how it feels a lot of the time. They're all...
Yeah, I know. I felt that way a lot myself. Admittedly, not as much lately. Maybe I was just with the wrong crowds, but like growing up, I remember several groups that I've joined, and it just felt like I tried to interact, tried to reach out, and no one just wanted anything at all to do with me whatsoever. It was especially bad in college and in this one youth group that I was signed up for. It was just... I got the feeling that people actively like looked at me with malice and just were like, and whenever I talked, they just like looked like, why aren't you talking? Shut up, go away. I remember there was one trip I went on to where someone said, can you be weird somewhere else? If they had said that today, I would have told them, I don't know, can you go fuck yourself as a response, but unfortunately can't go back. But yeah, it just feels like I'm never on the inside. That's kind of what he's saying. It's been rare that I've been on the inside. Even today, like I still don't feel like I'm on the inside much. I mean, there's maybe a couple groups where I don't feel like I'm on the outside, but there's very few people I feel like where I'm like the top priority to them, and they actually like reach out when I don't for a while, you know, and they actually care. There's relatively few people that I feel like actively seek me out, if that makes sense. Yeah, like it's not as bad as it used to be. I would say that some of the groups I'm in, it's not like people look at me with malice. I feel at least welcome, but it still kind of sucks because I would like some best friends, and I really don't have any of those.
They're all moving in some kind of unison that I'm just don't seem to quite understand, and they're all connecting with each other, and every time I make a move, it's like there was someone there and now there's no one there. And that's
Yeah, exactly. It's now admittedly I don't think I'm as affected by this as much, if only because I am like super intelligent. I'm a member of Mensa, and that allows me to kind of realize, like I can sometimes infer certain things that other people might not pick up on and say, maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe I should change this behavior without anyone telling me, because people are notoriously bad at telling you. That's one thing that pisses me off. Is it's like, if something's bothering you that much, why don't you talk about it? Or instead of just ignoring me and, you know, hoping it fixes itself or I leave. But so sometimes I can pick up on that, and sometimes I can change, and sometimes I can, you know, I can fit in better. I can basically fit the mold that other people expect me to fit more well because I'm so smart. But that's not to say that I haven't felt those feelings before. I just think I can cope with them and adapt to the conditions a little bit more than some people. And I mean, I'm not trying to put other people down. I'm just saying, like, they're there. I've experienced this. I just haven't experienced it as totally as you or maybe some other people have, because I can sort of adjust a little bit, because I can like read what's going on and, you know, change my behavior or try to talk about, address things that I think might be bothering people. And a lot of times I'm right. So, man, not trying to defend other people, like they kind of do suck. They really should just stop being so intolerant and stop freaking not saying what their problem is. That's one thing that's really bothers me, is like, if you have a problem with me, that's really bad, why don't you talk about it and maybe we could work through it instead of just going away, and stop having problems that don't make sense. I've had people whine about me listening to music in the hall at college, but here's the thing. I would hold the phone up to my ear and listen to music as I was leaving the building and going to get food and coming back. It's not like I was camped outside your door for 10 minutes. It's not like it was the middle of the night, because the thing closed at like 11 o'clock, I think. So if that's something that you're going to whine about, is somebody listening to music as they walk past every once in a while, during the middle of the day, no less, I think that you need better things to fill your time and stop being so petty. And people ass kissing that type of behavior definitely bothers me, but I suppose that's a subject for another video. But yeah, hopefully you can agree that that's kind of being a little bit petty. If that's something that you need to complain about, maybe you're just a miserable person.
That's especially true whenever I try and lean on someone as a friend. So, especially around strangers, I'm someone who's hyper aware of the reaction that other people have to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Which means that I bend over backwards to make sure that other people feel comfortable around me, essentially going out of the way to modify my behavior based on the situation and how people react to me. So everyone loves me when I'm able to do that. So long as I don't do anything weird, so long as I'm making them feel good, and so long as I don't ask anything in return, everyone loves me. It's fine.
Yeah, and that's one thing that's called masking, basically. And that's what bothers me, is when people bitch about the listening to music in the hall, or bitch how I don't smile all the time when I'm like checking them out. It's like, you understand how much of a Herculean effort it is to do what I'm doing, and you're going to whine about what I'm not doing. Like, it just makes me mad, because it's like it makes me mad, because it's like you're not recognizing all this effort I put in to get where I am. You're just focusing on the one thing I'm not doing right, and that just pisses me off. And again, they maybe aren't aware, but still, it's like, I don't know.
Fine. The difficulty is, you can imagine how much energy that takes from me all the time, constantly making sure that my behavior is what someone else wants it to be, so that they don't feel awkward, so that they don't have to do anything, so that they feel comfortable around me.
And of course, like they ever freaking bend over backwards to meet your standards. This is the thing. It seems like people expect you to bend over backwards to make them comfortable, but the moment you say, hey, maybe you should do a little bit bending too, it's only fair. Nope. It reminds me of when I tried to write a story about my past experiences, and I bend over backwards trying to adjust the story to what they think they'd like, what I think they'd like, and they can't even take 5 seconds to explain why they don't like it, even when I literally asked them. And still got dislikes even after all the subreddits I submitted to, all the changes I made. Eventually, I just got tired of it, and it's just, even when I called attention to it and said this is ridiculous, I shouldn't have to put up with this. People actually sided with the people who acted pretty entitled and didn't recognize all the effort I was putting in for them. So, yeah.
And then every once in a while, I run out of energy. And when I run out of energy, I don't have the resources to continue to filter my actions to make sure that it's what someone else expects and what someone else is going to react positively to. Without that filter, I come across as a little bit weird. And I'm not talking about the cool, different type of weird. I'm talking about the kind of weird that people just ignore and hope it goes away. That's my experience of being ignored until I go away. And when I have nothing left to give, I actually need help from other people. But the problem is that the less I am able to keep it up, the less other people are happy to be around me. And so it's like that school of fish analogy, where I go to lean on someone and all of a sudden there's just no one there anymore.
Now, I think part of this might be you're hanging out with the wrong crowd, but... And I think he mentions this in the other video. He said test the relationships early. That way you can weed out the ones that aren't worth having in your life and are going to pull that stint before you need them. And not make it so they get overwhelmed, because that's definitely what happened to me. There was a couple people I leaned on pretty hard, and they didn't meet my standards. And like, one of them I still haven't forgiven. The other, we talked it through, but I don't think the relationship can ever really be the same, because there's always this knowledge of, when I needed you, you didn't really help me. And maybe you were going through some things on your own, but you didn't tell me that. And at the same time, it's just, I needed you, and I can't trust you as much anymore. And I guarantee not everyone is so innocent like that. Like, that was just a misunderstanding. a lot of people are just freaking jerks.
There would seem to be so many people, and now they've just all vanished. Unfortunately, it's a very natural instinct to ostracize people that act differently. Think about how a crowded train treats that one crazy guy who's just mumbling to himself or screaming or something like that. It makes people feel uncomfortable and they don't know what to do, and they just ignore you until you go away. And that's how I see a lot of people deal with me when my filter goes down. So unfortunately, the more I reach out to people, the more I need to reach out to people, the less likely it is that anyone's going to reciprocate. And again, how that situation usually plays out is I have a tiny, tiny little bit of energy left, and I reach out to as many people as I can think of, rejected by every single one of them until I've got absolutely nothing left and I'm completely alone.
Yeah, so much for social support networks, right? Everyone's always says, lean on your support networks. What support network? I like, again, the one person I talked about who talked about recently confided in me that he felt that some disturbing things. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but and everyone around me saying, "Oh, why don't you help him?" I'll help him, but not because you say so. And it's kind of ridiculous that you think you have the right to tell me what to do and criticize me if I don't do it. When where the fuck were you when I needed help from you? You know, where the fuck was anyone when I needed help from you? Where the fuck was anyone when I said I was sinking on the Titanic and eventually became suicidal? Where was anyone? Nowhere to be found. And then you turn around and you think you have the high ground to tell me to help someone else? Now I'll help him, but not because you say so. You are not in any position of authority in that regard, because you clearly have proven who you truly are.
And the bonus of that situation, the real positive side, is that I don't have any energy to reach out to anyone else, and no one is around to reach out to anyway. And the reason that's a really good situation is because I don't waste my energy trying to reach out to people, which means I start slowly building up my energy again until eventually I've recovered enough that I can go out back into the world and be that strong person that everyone needs me to be.
Yeah, so I'm going to use the Titanic analogy again. It's like sending out distress rockets to people that you know can see them, but they don't respond. And meanwhile, the ship just keeps lurching downward. And eventually you have to stop that because you have to focus on pumping the ship out or it goes down completely. And when you do that, you actually can maybe make it go back up a little bit because you actually are focusing so much energy on pumping it that there's more water going out than going in, which is not the case if you're diverting your attention trying to send up distress rockets.
We have phrases like the straw that broke the camel's back. It's so difficult to explain to someone when they don't see what those straws are. In the past, when I've tried to speak to people about this, inevitably I'm told that that's just the way life works. People don't always respond. You can't just reach out to someone and expect them to reach out back. You need to build that relationship first. Like, well, I tried that. We were friends for a long time, and this is the first time I've reached out to you, and now you're telling me that you don't have time for me anymore, or it's too much.
Yep, the excuse machine. Calculating excuse to justify my behavior and others' behavior. I hate the excuse machine. Yeah, and it's that's really what I felt too. There's lots of people I've known for years, and you reach out for them, and they just didn't have my back. And, you know, some of them are disabled, so maybe they couldn't do what I was expecting them. But it's still, at the end of the day, like, it doesn't matter if the ship you reach out to try to save your passengers when you're sinking can hold all the passengers or not, or is going to sink themselves. You're still sinking, and you need someone to rescue you. And whether or not, and the physics don't care about whether or not the other ship was not helping you out of malice or because they simply couldn't. The ship's still going to go down. So I think that's something a lot of people ignore, and they try to, and then they say, "Oh, well, that's just the way people are." And again, you're victim blaming. Clearly, me and he is the victim in this situation, the one that's kind of been neglected. And you're trying to paint him as like, well, if you'd have done this better. You don't need that. He doesn't need that, okay?
Perfect example is my ex-wife. We were together for 8 years, and the first time I needed help, our whole relationship fell apart. It's like I'm on the edge of a cliff, literally hanging on by my fingertips and trying to get someone's attention, like, guys, hey, guys, little help. And eventually I'm shouting, and then I get told off for shouting and being inappropriate. And if you'd only done this the socially appropriate way, you would have got help and there wouldn't have been any problem. And wouldn't that have been much easier?
Yeah, exactly. It's like the story example. I tried being reasonable with the people that were flooding it with dislikes and ignoring me for years, and eventually I got fed up with it, and I called them out for it. You know, I'm like, this is ridiculous. Your behavior was not acceptable, and I'm just tired of dealing with it. And then people defend the people who are doing this and call me out for getting pissed. It's like, well, gee, maybe, like, no, it's like people don't have any understanding of cause and effect. It's not like I woke up one day and said, you know what would be really fun? Let's yell at people who let's yell at people for no reason. This is the result of sustained people just ganging up on me, sending a message that we don't want to listen, we don't care, you don't belong here, and ignoring me when I literally asked, why is this happening? Can someone just tell me what's going on? And I bend over backward, make all these changes. No one respects the effort. They keep making it clear they don't give a crap about what I'm going through and I don't belong there. Yeah, eventually after literally half a decade of that crap, you get tired of it and you get angry. And it's the same thing with this. Like when you're in a desperate situation, you know, maybe it's not so urgent at first, but the longer people don't freaking respond properly, the more desperate it becomes until you are shouting, because that's what you need to do, because you need someone to just fucking listen. You know, the edge, as he said, the edge of the cliff. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, much easier. Thanks, guys. I suspect one reason that I'm constantly told that I'm overreacting is because there is no one big thing.
Yeah.
It's just my daily reality. Why aren't you dancing? Why aren't you talking? Why aren't you participating in the same way that everyone else does? What's wrong with you?
Because to do so requires a mask. And to sustain that mask over time takes energy which is taxing and can only be done so much. I'm going to actually do a real world example here based on calculus. It's crazy that sounds, and I'm being completely unironic here. So in calculus, a lot of it's finding the area under a curve. You take integrals and you use it to find the area under a curve. And in this example, the area under the curve represents stress. And there's no one big event that causes stress, that causes the curve, that causes like the integral to break down. It's a low curve at all points, but it's wide. And if you have that curve be wide enough, even if it's not that high, the area underneath it and the stress you get in this example is going to be way more than it might even be for one really bad event, because it's sustained over so long. You know, it's like if I have a really shallow tub and I pour water into it, and I have a really deep well and pour water into it, the really deep well can probably hold a lot of water, but if the shallow tub's wide enough, it'll hold more. So again, and you might not even be able to realize it, but like you test it out, it's true.
And sure, most of the time it's like water off a duck's back. But have you ever hit a duck with a water cannon? Right? They don't pull up so well. It's not about the water. It's about the volume and consistency.
So not just like hitting with a water cannon, like hitting it with a torrential rainstorm. Like, because a water cannon, makes it sound temporary. Like, you know, it's just a torrential rainstorm. Or how about this? A tree in a severe thunderstorm. Sure, it can probably take the first gust and maybe the second, but if you sustain the winds of like hurricane force, like let's just say it's in a hurricane. If you sustain that for long enough, even though it might have been able to withstand the initial gust, it's eventually just going to keel over. So you have to understand that there's a limit to what people can take, and the thing is, the limit might not always be obvious. Like, what separates the gust that brought the tree down from the one that just before it? They were both the same size, right? You could handle that. You could handle the other one, but no, it's not like that, because that was too much.
people swimming around me and passing me by. I know they can see me, but they choose not to interact with me. And again, people say it's normal, it happens to everyone. But essentially, that's just a way for people to move out of the way when I try and lean on them, and to justify to themselves that there wasn't anything that I really needed help with, which is, again, a perfect example of just not being seen.
Exactly. And I love people who do that too, because they normalize that type of toxic behavior and enable the ones who are responsible, even if they're not doing it themselves. It's like the people when you talk about it's like the people who, when you talk about, hey, this person like is abusing me, and they're like, oh, well, I don't believe you. Thanks. I really needed your help, and you didn't listen to me. And now I'm wondering, can I reach out to anyone? Is anyone going to actually listen? Or are they going to take me seriously? Are they going to ignore me like everyone else is? Am I being too hard on this person? Self-doubt. I mean, when the person you expect is going to have your back makes you question. Yeah. Also, I love what he said. It's not that big a deal. That's actually technically gaslighting, isn't it? Like, hey, you're overreacting. It's not that big a deal. Actually, no, I'm not. Stop making me question my own sanity. Even though maybe that's not what they're intending, that is what gaslighting is, basically. It's just maybe a different context than it usually is, but that's kind of what it is. Like, you're making the person question whether their sanity or view of the world is correct. And it's like, yeah, it is. You're the one who's not seeing it, but because you're too selfish to acknowledge that you're a fuck up, and that you're not taking proper action or treating it as urgently as you should, you make them question their sanity. And that defers, which stresses them out even more and defers energy from them finding people who actually might help them or take them seriously, or resources they can use, like maybe like help hotlines. I don't know. Stop enabling. Stop that crap. It's not good. I hate that. There's definitely going to be a movie I'm going to make about enabling in the future, but that's something that pisses me off, is those enablers.
Even when I'm standing straight in front of someone, even when I'm saying those words directly to someone, they still choose not to see me. They choose not to see my experience, and they choose to avoid the situation instead of respond to me, which again is ironic, because in the process of trying to reach out and asking for help, I'm pushed away even further.
I know, right?
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, and it's people really fucking stupid like that. I remember there was one time there was this bully poker player on this one app who just kept harassing people, and I know what it's like to be in that situation, so I defend them. None of them really said thanks, and one of them actually had the gall to attack me and tell me I was and like say I don't need help from some fucking kid or something. I'm so glad I fucking called his big bluff a few hands later and took his fucking stack and then called another bluff. Maybe that money will pay for the therapy bills I have to deal with from you treating me like that. But seriously, ingrates like that suck. People who, yeah, and it's just, you try to reach out and help others even, and they just push you away and start attacking you, even though they're the ones that you'd think would be a little bit grateful because they're being attacked and someone's helping them. I'd be happy if someone did that. I wouldn't say I wouldn't be all macho and dickish and say, I don't need someone to help me. But it seems like a lot of people are like that.
So I guess this hasn't been an overly positive video, but I guess the whole point of me trying to explain this is so that if someone confides in you that something is really, really difficult, it probably is, and it really doesn't help to tell them that it should be fine, or tell them that the problem is in something about how they're going about fixing it.
Yeah, hey parents, you listening to this? Kind of might be good advice when I tell you that I'm sick of people, that the disabled community kind of sucks, instead of always acting like I should be doing something better, or downplaying how much it's affecting me. When you get ignored for years by people that you think are your friends and no one has your back on anything important, it affects you over time, whether or not the persons involved are disabled. So stop victim blaming me, stop downplaying what's going on, and trying to sympathize with the people who are shortcoming, even if the sympathy is well rooted, and start backing me up. It's not that hard.
Maybe the problem is in how other people fail to respond to the call for help. And that will do for today. Thanks.
Yeah, we should call people like that Californians. Because that's like the Titanic and the Californian. Except that's not a really good example, because Californian couldn't even made it in time, even if they wanted to. The ice field, it took them 2 hours to navigate it. And Titanic had less than that left when they started sending out distress rockets and distress calls. So they were kind of screwed anyways, but still, they didn't really help them. And I know it was because of the radio was turned off, but again, like, you could see the distress signals. Why did no one think to turn the radio on and just see what the hell was going on?
Thanks for watching. Bye.
Yep. You can damn well bet I'm subbed to this guy. You should be too.